Hello, thank you for watching this video. I'd like to talk to you about integrating FileMaker with artificial intelligence and how this becomes so much more easy with FileMaker 16. My name is Joris Aerts. I'm co-founder of ClickWorks. We are a platinum member of the FileMaker Business Alliance based in Antwerp, Belgium. You can find more information about us on our website clickworks.eu. Well, a couple of weeks ago, I was in a meeting with a client who runs a casting bureau for commercial ads. He's constantly on the lookout for people with very specific characteristics. Men with beards, for instance, women with beautiful hands, girls with freckles or tattoos, you name it. This is the custom app that we built for him years ago. Notice how it contains several fields to describe a person's appearance, like hair color or eye color and so on. Now, besides all these fields, we build a flexible system of so-called tags that this client can use for very specific searches, like, for instance, beards, mustaches, disabilities, freckles, lingerie, nude, and so on. And we were talking about how this list of tags quickly became disorganized and how tedious it is to maintain. So I was joking to him and I said, yeah, well, within a couple of years, you won't have to do all this data entry yourself anymore. Some robot will do it for you. And after this meeting, I became curious and I started to look around, and this is what I came up with. So I'm going to close this database and I'll show you the result in FileMaker 16. This is built with the brand new FileMaker 16, and thanks to its new features, it only took a couple of hours. Well, you know. This is just a list of pictures. FileMaker container fields, nothing special. But look at these tags on the bottom. And I'll show you what happens when I add a new picture. Okay, I have some pictures right here. Let me close this, and there it is. It's just a folder with some pictures. And now I'm going to add a new picture to my database. I click on the plus sign, and let me just drag this beautiful young lady on the container field. And after a few seconds, this artificial intelligence comes back to me with a list of tags or a description of what he sees. So he sees a sexy woman who's wearing lingerie in a fashionable way. She's glamorous. Nude, that's maybe not the right description to it. There's a girl in this picture. She's a model. She has long hair. She's wearing underwear, etc. I can click on this list, and if I want, I can remove some tags, like this is definitely not a nude picture, so I can remove this one. And now I'm just correcting what the robot has generated for me. So instead of entering all this data myself, I let the robot do the work, and I'm just verifying what he does. This is really the other way around. Now let me show you another example. You know this guy? This is Dominique Goupil, CEO of FileMaker. Let me add Dominique to my database. Boom, there we go. So you see, this is a man. There's one man on the picture. It's a portrait picture. He has some facial expression to himself. Actually, he's bald. He seems like a leader. He seems to reflect intelligence. This is a picture taken indoors. And there's one wrong guess. Eyeglasses. This may not really be true. So again, I'm gonna correct this one. But isn't this amazing? This is quite an accurate description of what we see on this picture. And the best thing is, this is a FileMaker relational database that I built, so I can start exploring my database using these tags. So there are, for instance, 3 people wearing an outfit, I can just click on it to display pictures that have these tags. Do I have any other bald people? No. Do we have leader pictures? Yes, we have 3. These are leaders. Do we have other pictures with facial expressions? Yes, indeed. So this is a whole new way of exploring my database in a way that was not possible before, because this number of tags is simply not maintainable by a human person. Okay, let me show you one more example. Let's take this handsome young man. This is a man with a beard. And again, there we go. So look at this description. Quite accurate, isn't it? And again, I can click on the tags and explore my database using these tags. Well, how does this magic work? Well, what happens in the background is that our images are processed by an online robot, or a so-called API, Application Programming Interface. And FileMaker 16 makes it now very easy to do that. You don't need plugins anymore, you don't need a web server anymore, you don't need PHP anymore. And what's so special about this specific API, it's not just a processing engine that sends out emails or looks up zip codes. No, this is real intelligence, artificial intelligence. It learns from the thousands of photos that are thrown to it, and it becomes smarter every day. You can even train this robot yourself to recognize special patterns in your own photos. It's up to you. Now let me show you. This is clarify.com, and right from their homepage, they show us what they can do. This picture, for instance, has been recognized by their artificial intelligence, and it has detected the tags here below: snow, mountain, ice, travel, and so on. It has also extracted the principal colors used in the picture. So you can even do searches based on colors. Let's try another image. I just click here. This is how it works. They have several pre-trained models, as they call it. And you can create and train your own model if you want to. The robot can automatically assign tags to any image you throw at it. It can even perform searches for similar images based on an initial image. This is the kind of artificial intelligence that is now in use on public sites to block content that violates the terms of use, for instance, like pictures containing nudity. And now all this power becomes available to us FileMaker developers thanks to the folks at clarify.com and the new features of FileMaker 16. This API is even free to use. Let me show you a few more things on this beautiful website. First, there are several pre-trained models that we can use. There's one for celebrities, there's one for colors, apparel, face detection, which works in a similar way as the Mac default Photos app that also can recognize faces. There's one for food. There's the general model, that's the one that I've been using for my FileMaker database. And there's a model that can recognize degrees of nudity in a picture to block nude pictures from being posted to a public forum, for instance. So these are the models. Second, there's custom training. I'm going back. Do you know the Photos app on the Mac? Faces? Your Mac tries to guess whose face appears on your photo, and you can train it by confirming the right guesses and barring the wrong. This is exactly how model training works with the Clarify API. But it's just not limited to faces. You can train it to recognize whatever you want. And then the costs. You can use this API for free for up to 5,000 images processed per month, for a total of 10,000 free inputs. What you need to do is to sign up to receive a so-called API key. Now, before you do that, please note that data is sent to servers in the United States and that usage statistics of the API are collected but on a de-identified basis. Okay, let me show you how you can sign up. There's a link right here in the upper right corner. So you need to fill in some information about yourself. You need to provide an email address and a password. There's no credit card number required to sign up, and you can use the API for free. Now, let me show you how it looks like when you log in as a registered user. This is my profile, and here are some applications that I've connected to the API. So I can have several applications, each with their own set of photos. This is some profile information, which I can change if I want to. Billing information, and I'm currently on the free plan. So you even don't need to add a credit card to start using the API for free. These are some usage statistics. So this is what I've been doing on this application. It's all for free right now. Now let me go back to applications. And if I want to add a new application, I can just click this button, specify a name, test2, and specify the model that I want to use for my application. So right now I have this nudity model, travel, weddings, food items, or the most generic, the general module. I can even choose the language. So you can have tags returned to you in a whole list of language, including Dutch, for instance, English, German, French, and so on. So I choose English for now, and I click Create Application. And what happens is the name is registered and I receive a client ID and a client secret. And this is information I need to use to authenticate my application, FileMaker, to the API. And what the API will return to me is a so-called access token. So the first call will include this information, and all subsequent calls, when I start sending pictures to it, will use just this access token. So this is a summary of steps that we need to use to make it work. First, we need to authenticate to the API, tell the API who we are and what application is using it. Then we get an access token. We can send images to the API and always use the access token with it. And the API or the robot will return us with a list of tags, and we need to parse that response afterward. Now, what I like very much about this website from Clarify is that they have provided excellent documentation. Let's have a look. Just click Docs. There's a quick start or there's a complete guide. Okay, let me click on the guide. Right, getting started. So this is how it works. You send some pictures to the API, so-called inputs. They are processed by the module of choice, and they will return a list of so-called predictions. So I name it tags in my database, but they call it predictions. And you do not only get a name of a prediction, but also a probability percentage. So how sure this robot is of these predictions. Now the first step is to authenticate to the API, and this is actually the hardest part, because let me click authentication. There's some explanation about so-called OAuth 2 authentication. This is what's happening with the client ID, client secret, and access tokens. But actually the documentation assumes that you know how this works and what so-called basic authentication is. And I spent some time to figure this out and to look up what the required parameters are. Well, since this video is not really meant to show you all the ins and outs of APIs and authentication, I just prepared this information for you. So the first line shows us the URL we need to send the authentication information to, so-called token endpoint. And then we need to send more information with the URL using curl, two parameters, a user parameter with a client ID and a client secret, and then a data parameter with this specific information grant type equals client credentials. Now let me show you this in FileMaker. I go to the script workspace, and these are the API scripts. This is the script to get an access token. So there's some code to verify if I have a client ID and a client secret provided. I will show you later, but there is a settings table. Maybe I'll show you right now. Okay, notice the button in the upper left corner. This is the settings button. I just click it. This is the new card window of FileMaker 16. And this is a fake client ID and a client secret. You remember the two strings we saw earlier when creating a new application just after creating the profile. So that's the information you need to copy and then paste here in settings. Okay, let's go back to the script maker. Ooh, beautiful. So here's some code to verify if this information is provided or to bring you to the settings screen. I only need to retrieve a token once per session. There is an expiration time, but I'm assuming that you will close the database before this expiration time will expire. This is what they call the token endpoint. It's actually just a URL referring to a certain version of the API and then ending with token. That's the endpoint. What's more complicated is the metadata I need to send, the so-called URL header. And there we go. So this is literal text. I use a quote function here to get quotes around this combination, the client ID from the parameters, column, client secret. So this is something you need to know, but this is the same for a lot of APIs. Right here, I have the insert from URL script step. So I'm sending this URL with this specific URL header. It will authenticate to the API and it will return to me, hopefully, with the so-called access token. So let's have a look. This is the new dialog window from FileMaker 16 with the new option to verify if I am really talking to the right website, clarify.com, and if their certificate is still valid. And then I can specify a so-called target. That's where the return information, the information coming from the API will be written to. And what's new is that I can now write directly to a variable, so I don't need a field anymore. I call my variable JSON because that's what we will receive. JSON is a specific string containing of name value pairs. So I will get data back in the name value pair form. This is the URL I specified before, token endpoint. And this is new for FileMaker 16. I can specify so-called curl options. Curl is a tool to send data with a URL. And in fact, it's just the URL header I specified before. Okay, if I send this information to the Clarify website, it will come back to me with a so-called JSON string. I can show you that in the documentation. So on the website, it's very well documented. This is what I need to send, and this is what I get back. This is how JSON looks like. It's in fact just a string with names, eventually a tree of underlying names, code, this is the value, description is a name, this is a value, and so on. So it's a structured array like a string of text. Now what I need to do is to parse out the access token from this string. And in FileMaker 16 this is also very easy to do because we get a list of new JSON functions, and the function I need here is the so-called JSON get element function, and I just refer to one of the names in our string. So there was an access token name, and of course this will contain the access token I will receive from my API call. So let me show you how this works using the script debugger. Oops, didn't want to save. I'm going to skip these tests just to show you what happens. Okay, this is the URL. This is the insert from URL script step, which will fill my variable called JSON. So this took a while, this took a second or so. And now I have this new variable JSON containing exactly the string of text that was mentioned in the documentation. So look, the access token here, and in fact it's the same string that we receive. So this is my access token, and this is what we need to use further on in our scripts. And this is the expiration time. I think it's about 2 days or something, 39,000 seconds. Okay, so I receive my JSON string, and I just need to parse out only this tag, the access token, and I immediately store it in a global variable, so this access token will last as long as my database is open. There we go, and there's my token. So this is what I can use further on in the application. Okay, now that we have an access token, we can start talking to the API and ask it to process our images. Here's the documentation. This is actually very well documented. And this is what I want to do. I want a so-called prediction. This is what analyzes my images and tells me what's inside them. So what we need to do is we need to specify a URL again. There it is. That's the last line ending with outputs. And then we need to specify 2 headers. One with the access token. It's the line with the bearer, authorization bearer in it. This is the actual access token. And the second header tells the API that we are sending data in JSON format. So we need to encapsulate our image in a so-called JSON string with certain specific elements. That's this part, it's the data part. There are several ways to do that. You can refer to an image on the web using a so-called image URL. But our picture resides in a FileMaker container field. So we need to find a way to upload these pictures in text format. And the way to do that is by using base 64 encoding. So to send image bytes, I need a way to encode my container data in base 64 encoding. Now let me show you how we do that in FileMaker. This is the calling script. This is the script that runs when I drag an image on a container. Now, some basic checks. And here's where I call the getPrediction script, which requests a base 64 encoded string. This is the parameter I'm sending. So I'm converting my container field to a base 64 encoded string. And I'm using the new FileMaker 16 functions, base 64 encode RFC. And this allows me to specify a very specific method of encoding, because there are several methods. One, the default method in FileMaker 15 was base 64 encoding with line ends after every 70 characters or something, I'm not sure. But this specific encoding allows to send it as a string without line breaks, which makes it even more compact. So this is how I encode the image and then send it to the getPrediction script. Okay, let's take a look at this script. So first I receive the image parameter. This is the outputs URL that we saw in the documentation. So I'm sending my images to be processed by a certain module. This is the module reference. First, this is where I encode the data. So my image needs to be encapsulated in a JSON string. This is exactly what we saw in the documentation, with the complexity for FileMaker that every quote within a string needs to be preceded by a backslash. So this is the beginning of the string, the ending of the string, and any quote we need within it must be preceded by a backslash. And this is where I actually use my variable. And to have proper quotes around it, I use the FileMaker quote function to make it a bit more readable. So this is base 64 encoded image information. That's how we send container data as a text string using curl and data with a URL. Okay, this is the header information. Let me just briefly switch back to the documentation. So we needed our access token and we needed to tell the API that we are sending JSON data information. And this is how we do that. It's not so hard at all, and it's always the same thing. So one header parameter with this literal texts, and this is the token that I received from the other script I showed you earlier. Okay, this is literal texts, content type, application, JSON. Oh, and this is something special, because this is actually the data parameter, and I'm using the variable I just composed of the line before, the post data with my image, and I'm adding it to the URL header. And this is the specific way to do that. It is documented in the FileMaker help, but this is something very uncommon because you have text within quotes, so this will be literal text. But by using the add sign, I can use a variable, a $sign, which refers to my variable post data. It's my own variable that I just prepared here in the line before. So this is something very, very special, something uncommon, and it is very well documented in FileMaker help. Now here is the documentation about using variables in the data parameter. So you can specify data directly or using the add sign and then referring to a variable. And that's what I'm doing in my FileMaker script right here. So I composed this variable $post data earlier, and now I'm referring to it in my data parameter using the add sign. Apparently that is how it works. Now once we've set this all up, we send this to the API and then we get the result, and this will be a description of our picture with a series of so-called predictions or tags. This is documented in the Clarify help, of course. So this is the response. Let me show you. And this is a whole lot. This is also a JSON string, a structured array of name values. But how can I start to understand all this information? Well, luckily there are online tools to help you reading JSON strings. So I'm just selecting all this text and I copy this. And let me Google that for you. Online JSON tool. There we go. All right, this is what we need. I can just paste some JSON information in here. All right, and then I have a viewer right here. Hey, isn't that great? This is what's actually in the JSON result from the Clarify API. There's some status information, okay. And then this is the actual data, outputs, oops. Okay, base information, output ID, some status information, the model that's being used, information about the input we've sent to it. So we've sent an image, and this image will now temporarily be stored on an Amazon server. So apparently the Clarify API uses Amazon Web Services, just like FileMaker Cloud does, which stores our images temporarily. And this is the data we get back, a list of so-called concepts. Ooh, whoops, I get a list of 19, no, in fact 20 because it's zero based. So 20 tags or concepts. Each tag is a little JSON envelope with an ID, a name, API ID, but not really meaningful to us, and then the prediction value. So how sure the robot is of this tag. So this has a more than 99% prediction value. So this is what we get back. Of course, this is sample data. This is not my image being processed. Well, this may look complicated if you just see it like this. But with FileMaker 16's JSON functions, it's actually very simple. Let me show you my script to parse out this information. I have this script parse response, and I send the JSON script parameter to it. Okay, first thing I do is flesh out the parts I need. And in fact, I need two things. I need information about the picture and how it's being stored in the cloud. And so I'm going to look for the input section of the JSON parameter. Let me show that to you. This was the first part. Input, data, image. So this is the way I can retrieve the ID, how my image is known to the Clarify API, and where it is stored, the URL. So I'm going for the output element and then the input tag. This is outputs, 0, and then input. So this is what happens. This is the structure, the JSON structures, the outputs level, then the input ID, data, and then within data, image and URL. Okay. The second part I need is the list of tags or the predictions or concepts in the JSON string. So let me show that to you. Outputs, data, concepts, and here is a so-called array or list of tags or so-called predictions. So I take out this chunk of JSON, which is in itself also a JSON string. So I can just flesh out some parts of the JSON and then process it later as if it were a complete JSON string. Okay? Now, first thing I start to do is count how many tags I have, so I can start looping them. And this is a new function, JSON list keys, which actually returns a list of keys in an array. And I count them. I use value count because it's a return separated string. So tag count gives me the number of tags I receive from the API. And if I receive any tag, I go on. Okay. This is code to flesh out ID and data image URL from my image. And then I start writing that to my database. So I save it to the appropriate fields in my database. Okay. And then I start looping over all the tags. This is my variable, my counter. Okay. Since the index is 0 based, I don't use tag count directly, but I use index. And then using the index number within square brackets, I can refer to a specific element in the list of tags. So it's always the same function, JSON get elements, but within the JSON tag string, so the part that I fleshed out earlier containing only the list of tags, I can now use the index number to refer to a very specific index, then retrieve the ID, retrieve the index name, retrieve the value, so the prediction percentage, complete my FileMaker list of tag names, and then start writing out to my tag table. Actually, there are two tables. There is the catalog table containing all the individual tags or unique tags, but since tags can be reused, I also have a table picture tags. So each picture has a set of records, so-called picture tags, attached to it, which refers to the tags. Okay. And the way I create records is using a portal with the option Allow Creation in FileMaker. Let me show that to you. So I have a relationship from picture to picture tags to the tags table. So this is a many-to-many relationship. Okay, this is the join table. And in this relationship, I have the Allow Creation option activated. So I can generate new picture tags right from my picture. And I can even generate tags as well, because I have Allow Creation enabled here as well. And since tags can be reused just by setting the value, if the tag already exists, it's not replaced. If it does not exist, FileMaker will create it for me. So in a very simple script, I can create records in two tables at once, just setting fields, picture ID, tag ID in picture tags, and then tag name directly in tags. This will create a new tag if the specified tag does not exist. All right. I do that in a portal, and then I commit at the end. So it's transactional. It's all or nothing. But that's not important for this session. Okay, let me do this one more time, step by step, to show you the complete flow. I'm gonna close the script workspace, and I'm going to make sure that my settings are correct. So I'm going to my profile information, to the application I just created, and I'm going to copy the client ID I received here and just paste it in here. There's a safe confirmation set up with this layout. Client secret. Switch back to FileMaker, paste it in here. Now I'm gonna activate the script debugger. Let me put this aside. Okay. Save this, and now close this window. There's an onLayout exit script trigger that will reload the settings. So the result will be that there are now two global variables set to the new client secret, client ID. This is the token from a previous script. Let me just clear that for you just to demonstrate the complete flow. All right. Let me add one more picture for you. Navigating to the pictures folder. All right, there we go. Click on the plus sign. Drop the picture. Okay. Now there's an object modify script trigger behind this global container field. I'm checking if there's something in the container. Saving the picture to the record. Some error handling. These scripts are not made as we would do them, as we would make them in a production product, just a demonstration script. So there's not plenty of error handling in them. We could do better, of course. Okay, I'm going to request a prediction for this image. So it will be passed as a base64 encoded string. That's what you see below here. This is this image in base64 encoding. So I'm now in the get prediction script called from the container modify script. Okay, we have a parameter. Do we have an access token? We certainly have the client ID and client secret already, but I just cleared out the token to show you. Token should be empty. Okay, it is. So we're going to request a new access token using this URL, the header, as we discussed earlier. Okay, we receive some JSON back. Here's our access token. Go on, let's parse this. And the result should be a valid access token, right? There we go. Okay, so we have an access token. Now we can send the picture, wrap the image in a JSON string, set up the URL header, and send it all to the Clarify API. Okay, picture is uploaded, just a matter of seconds. This is the script result. Remember this long JSON string with all these predictions in it, predictions and their prediction value. Now what remains is just parsing all this information using the new JSON functions from FileMaker 16. So two sections, picture information, tag information. Let me show you. This is the picture information, and we're going to extract the ID and the URL from it. And this is the list of tags, so it's just a substring. Okay, and the rest is in fact regular FileMaker scripting using JSON get elements. Oh yes, count list key, so we get a tag count, we get the number of tags returned. Alright, now I'm going to skip the rest of the script. This is just regular FileMaker scripting. And there we go. Look at how accurate these predictions already are. The model has successfully recognized that this girl has a tattoo, amongst other tags. These predictions will only get better over time. And if you would need to do this manually, you would limit yourself maybe to 3-4 tags. And now we get a much more precise way of filtering our data without all the hassle of manual data entry. To me, this is a game changer, and to my client as well. It's the era of big data and artificial intelligence now available in FileMaker. Please let me know what you think about these new possibilities and how this could change the way we will build FileMaker apps in the near future. Thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Joris Aerts from Clickworks in Belgium. Visit the blog section on our website to download the sample file. It's open source. Thank you very much.